Hello, and thanks for joining us on this HOA Later video chat with two of our experts. My name is Gabriella Flisco. Today, I'm joined by Robert Ducharme of New Hampshire and Matt Zifroni of Florida. And this month, we're discussing a contractual dispute between a board and an outgoing manager. The manager is withholding records during the transition to a new management company, and the manager says, I'm not giving you the records until I get paid. The president is trying to work with the manager, but the president says the association won't pay until the association gets the records needed from the manager. Now, the contract seems to favor the association's position, saying the manager must turn over the records upon the termination date and will be paid when the transfer of records is complete. But the manager says, nope, all required data will be provided within 2 business days once we verify we've received payment. So in this video, these two HOA expert lawyers will discuss what's typically in a management contract when it comes to the transfer of records and the final payment to the manager. And then in our second video, Robert and Matt will talk about whether this board president may be absolutely right on the contract front, but cutting off his nose to spite his face. And we'll also discuss lessons from this dispute. So just a note, our experts are providing their insights based on the laws and practices in their state. This video is supposed to give you general guidance you can use when you approach an expert in your state. So with that in mind, let's jump in. Matt, what typically is in a management contract that you see when it comes to transfer of data and final payment?
Hi. So I see it two different ways. Either the contract doesn't address the situation, but in the instances where the contract does address the situation, it seems consistent with what this contract provided for, in that it has a payment obligation on the association's part, but it also has a transfer of records obligation on the part of the management company. So that seems to be consistent with what the contract at issue is.
And Robert, what do you typically see on the contract front there?
Well, before I get to that, sorry, I want to follow up on what Matt said, which I agree, but I also think that it's unusual in the sense that I've never seen a contract, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, if you've seen it, I've never seen a contract that says, hey, we get to withhold all your records unless you pay us money. It's apples and oranges. One said your duty as a manager is to operate the association, and there's transition. You have to hand over the records because they're not your records. That's theft if you keep them. The other is simply a contract. Geez, we did work and we didn't get paid for it. That's not in that contract. It's separate apples and oranges. But along those lines, and Matt can correct me if he's seen the opposite, but most of the ones I see are contracts that haven't been done by an attorney. They're usually drafted and done by the management company's attorney, so they're always slanted. What I thought was interesting in this case and helpful is that clearly the management company didn't draft it, because in the ones that I've seen where they are drafting their own, they're always the first check that's cut, and they have total authority to pay for bills. And in this case, obviously they're not allowed to write checks for themselves, or we wouldn't be having this dispute. So it was a good contract in that sense. And I suspect that it's just in some sense a bluff or some type of extortion, because they would, if you went to court, you don't want a 2-year fight over it, but you'd lose pretty quickly.
Matt, you want to add anything about what Robert just said?
No, and I agree, Robert, with what you're saying. It's so the typical contracts that will either be silent or will require the documents to be turned over. I've never seen one where the management company can hold the association hostage by linking, oh, but we're not going to turn over the documents unless we're paid. It's a contractual obligation to turn it over, and there's also a separate obligation contractually to pay the management company. I've never seen those two obligations linked together.
Oh, can you imagine the chaos if it were? Oh.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Robert and Matt, for your quick takes on the topic. And listeners, thanks for joining us. We hope you'll join us again next month.